going to move into our panel on effective media ministry in an age of censorship. We have three esteemed leaders in media. My dear friend Steve Fedyski, who is the CEO and founder of Cloudburst, a film producing company. Joe Battaglia, one of the who's who in media, Christian media and beyond, even involved in secular media the last 3 to 4 decades. And Leon Schoeman, who's developing a platform that will probably give us an opportunity not to need to have these discussions anymore once his platform is launched. So Doug Stringer is going to facilitate the discussion. We're going to end at 1:45, jump into our next panel. So each presenter will have about 12 minutes, and then there may be some time for Q&A. So Doug, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Bishop. And it's great to have these three gentlemen on a subject that is very critical right now, especially with the advent of social media and the multiple platforms of news sources that we have and television. So I think this is a very critical subject. And so we'd like to go ahead and start with you, Joe. If you'll go ahead and share with us for a few minutes, and then we'll have each of you share, and then we'll go into some Q&A.
Sure. Thanks, Doug. I think on a foundational level, let me say this, and I think our audience will appreciate this. We should expect censorship in the media or battles in the media, which I'm in the New York area, and I have been doing this my whole career, being in New York and talking with my media friends, many of whom are believers. And so we are fighting against the prince of the power of the air. This is his domain. This prince controls that domain. So we should not be unaware of this battle. We should understand it better and how to address it, how to prepare ourselves for it. And so I'd like to think about these things right now on this line. I think, first of all, we have to understand a mission field mentality. This is the media that we face. And as we look at Jesus as our model, what did he do to help in areas where he was forced to take a different position? And so we'll go on a road trip with he and his disciples through Samaria. And I think there's a principle here that we can learn from. Simply this. So he goes into a land that Jewish people really did not travel through at that time in Samaria. And he encounters on purpose the woman at the well. And we're all familiar with that. And so he proceeds to talk with her about things she understands in a language that she understands. He tells her about herself. And then I'll make the story short. We all know it. She is amazed at what he talks about, what he reveals to her. And then she goes back to all her people and says, hey, you ought to meet this guy. He's amazing, and so forth. So the principle there is that when we go out of our way to be with people unlike us, they will go out of their way to tell people about us. So how does this work on the media side? I think we first of all have to come to this with a mission field mentality. And by that, simply, that if I were to go into a foreign land, I would speak the language they speak. I would be quiet and learn from them on what it reveals to them about me. And so, first of all, I think we have to understand to certainly communicate to people in the media, and again, in a language they understand, because that's the mission field. And we have to prepare ourselves to go outside of ourselves and be with them in a way that they would understand how we communicate. So the interesting thing is that we can't just use our Christian terms and our Christian logic and use that filter. We have to understand their filter. And this is what I have found in my years of service here in New York, especially when I go and talk with people that are unlike me. I have to go out of my way to engage with media people who aren't necessarily believers. And I have never really had a problem um, communicating with them about what I believe, because I'm trying to be one of them only in identity with um, the discipline that I have. And so I go in with a mission field mentality. I go in with the understanding that I've got to be prepared to fight the battle with the prince of the power of the air. And I then am able to make headway. And I've never not been able to talk about my faith. And so I think it's because I don't come with the next point, which I think is very important to understand. And I think this is a law of the universe that I don't think a lot of us really grasp. And that is this: each of us brings whatever we have as gifts and talents into our work. And I think that the most important thing about our work is the spirit that we bring into it. And I really believe that the spirit we bring into whatever we do and whatever we communicate is the same spirit which is received at the other end by the people consuming it. And I think that's so important to understand, that if we bring a spirit of censorship or a spirit of fear or a spirit of anything other than love and coming as a servant, our friends in media will pick that up immediately and they will respond to us like this. My job is to diffuse that, understand the spirit that I am coming with, understand the mission field mentality, and then understand that my job is to go as a missionary to them and nothing less. So I think that helps to break down the spirit of censorship, because there is a spiritual battle in the heavenlies. We've got to be prepared for that. And I have to approach it as such. And so what I think has happened in the past generations is that we go in with our Christian thoughts, not understanding how to interpret our understanding of what it is to be a believer and the issues that we cannot dilute, the issues that we have to come as believers and try to help them understand what we believe. And if we come in that position, then we're more likely to get an audience and not to experience personal censorship. Now, what we have seen is almost just the opposite, that we come with anger often, with language and ideas that are foreign to them. And people get confused as to what Jesus we're talking about. And I think that's an important thing, that we're not there to create trench warfare, to lob our verbal grenades at them in a language they don't understand. We really want to come into their camp as evangelicals, and we want to talk to them in a certain way that enables them to understand the spirit behind my communication with them. And I'm trying to understand them because I'm embracing a mission field mentality. And so that to me is an important thing to understand before we go and see anyone in the media. We know we're going into a battle. And so what we need to help people understand is why we have the kind of communication we have. We're not there to fight the culture war, because we have to remember who the real enemy is, and we have to fight him because he's the one who's disabling us. He is the one who controls the media. And my job is to be prepared as a believer to fight that battle in the heavenlies. And my job is to help people see who Jesus is in me, and that I can communicate what he is about on their level. And so all the political things that we have been engaged in the recent decades has really brought confusion as to what the real message of Jesus is. And there's a statement that I like to use often that when we raise the flag higher than the cross, we really have a problem with our media friends. And so I think that is just too confusing. And so I know I have just another couple minutes left, and let me end with this. Again, I'm looking for my job description as a media person, and I think I find that in 2 Corinthians 5:17, where Jesus gives us, not Jesus, but Paul obviously gives us our job, right? And our job description after he says we are new creations and everything is new. He says we are ambassadors and ministers of reconciliation. I may be a media-centric person, but I recognize that my real job is to be an ambassador. And here's the cool thing about an ambassador. We are sent not to fix the country we're in, but to represent the country we're from. I think we're too busy trying to fix everything rather than representing Jesus. And I think people understand that. And I think that's an important thing for us to filter through in our discussions with people. My job then is to be a minister of reconciliation, and that means to reestablish friendship between. So my job is not to go fix everybody and everything, but to represent Jesus and enable the person I'm dealing with to understand that God can be his friend. And so if I prepare myself, and that's what I'll leave you with today, that we need to prepare ourselves before we go fight the battle of media censorship, because I'm always expecting that to happen, because I am going against the prince of the power of the air. And if I am not prepared for that battle in my heart, in my spirit, and in what I communicate, I'm going to necessarily be ostracized, if you will. And that never helps anybody. And so that's what I'd like to share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Some very good points, and we'll have some Q&A at the end here. So Steve Fedyski, if you take some time and share what you've been thinking and processing in regards to having effective ministry in a censored world.
Thank you. It's great to be with everyone this afternoon. It's this morning where I'm at, but basically, the first thing is I agree with what Joe said about preparing ourselves. I mean, God's called us individually to have a plan. He's laid out a plan for us, Ephesians 2:10 says. And, you know, to me, each and every day is don't get away from your spiritual disciplines. So if you have a call in your life and God calls you to it, he'll help you complete it. And a couple of scriptures that just resonate with me on a personal level is 2 Tim 1:7. God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and sound mind. You want to talk about an audacious undertaking when God calls you to be a media missionary in one of the darkest places of all the spheres of influence. And so first and foremost, if you're not girded up, if not in your heart set apart, Jesus is Lord, first and foremost, I think you're going to go out without the full armor on, and you're going to get the fiery darts you didn't need to take. So in lieu of that, the darts are going to come. And I just would say, first and foremost, I agree with Joe. Let's be prepared personally. The call for me was years I'd worked the largest faith and family film company in the world. That company got dispersed. They went in various directions as far as selling off parts of the company. And in that experience, I realized that number one, we cannot compete as influencers in one of the greatest fields, mission fields of influence, media and entertainment, unless we bring excellence to the table. So what I had experienced is that we were bringing not competitive content many times to what was out. And the consumer, be it the Christian consumer or the consumer in general, was looking for the right kind of content. So first and foremost, if you're prepared, when you go out, you better be ready for excellence to compete. Otherwise, you don't have power. As Bishop Dale Bronner was talking about earlier, power, the ability to influence people, events, and outcomes. Well, if you want to influence people in your camp and you want to affect the people around the world with the message of your content, it's very critical, that you are pursuing excellence in that. Because if you do that, you will get the influence, and you'll have bigger doors of opportunity to influence even further. I know Joe, as well as Leon here, I know they live and breathe that as well. I see it firsthand in the industry, and that's one of the reasons why I can collaborate with them and cooperate with them in a common cause. As far as those two items, it leads to why we launched Cloudburst Entertainment. Our vision was to impact lives through transformational media. Our mission was to be the world leader in distributing transformational media and entertainment. And again, why should we be in the business if we're not going to be excellent? And the positioning of the company was birthed out of the fact that instead of being singing to the choir with faith content only, we'd bring mainstream content that actually had biblical worldview principles. That was transformational is the word we used. That transformation means we want to be a catalyst to change from the mindset and the heart set of an individual to maybe change the way they view a situation, view another person. And I just felt that if we just use the word of being a catalyst for change through the media messaging, that's really what God had called us to do and be. So in that, we said, well, how do you position that transformational content in a competitive environment against the major studios? Number one, again, I looked at the marketplace, and the marketplace offered that Disney used to bring family content. Now, as Joe and Franco was sharing, it's confusing, right? Disney wants you to know that Adam and Steve are okay to be the head of the family. And so we wanted to bring and compete with high-level content that brought what I'd call biblical worldview messaging inside the normal, as Disney used to do a lot of great family content. And we want to be that provider of that content, that distributor of that content. So for example, we'll still do animation films. We'll do 4-quadrant films, meaning it reaches young and old alike, all genres, but we're going to do it with an edge. Sometimes we're going to do an edge to reach people that aren't churched, the unchurched, that don't know even Christ. And we'll bring a powerful message like in the Blindside movie, if you saw it. So everybody loved that movie. It got a lot of recognition awards. Millions saw it, and still is a wonderful message film that people enjoy. So, we realized Disney was leaving that on the table. We also realized that other film production and distribution companies weren't focusing on family-friendly content at a high level. So we said we would be that world leader in bringing that content, because there's so many gifted creators of content, producers of content, writers of content, but someone had to be the distribution arm to take it into the theaters, into streaming, into the homes for home entertainment and around the world. So that's what we positioned ourselves to. Now, saying that, how did the market respond? Well, the other thing that I would say, our first mission field, even though I want to bring content that's transformational to the world, the first mission field is to the industry. So we decided to train and equip our people as media missionaries. We speak it, we teach it, we empower them, and we send them into their area of expertise. We recruit people that are our alliance partners that also align with us. And those that don't quite get it, we intentionally try to share the love of Christ and being intentional about how we go about business. So by being light and salt, by standing firm on our position, even if that position means a risk of losing a project or a deal, we will continue to show people the things that be done the right way. How that has affected us is that on the cancel side of things, when you go in with that mind and heart set, very quickly, I had a film that we represented that was on pro-life, that was done by the writers of God's Not Dead. It was called Unplanned. The studios turned it down, even though we had a contract with them to push it into the DVD and Blu-rays into the homes. They wouldn't take it down to the video on demand platforms or down to streaming. And so we pivoted and took it through a different route with independent distributors and independent relationships. And from that learning, we saw other major studios turn down films. I had a recent film turned down last year. We pivoted with independent partnerships, usurped the entire studio process, and still exceeded expectations even in lieu of the COVID market with that film. The reason why I'm not naming it, because I don't want it's still in process of where we are marketing and selling it around the world. bottom line is that you have to stand firm on where you stand as far as your biblical worldview. You have to do it with gentleness and respect, but with excellence. And I believe then people would respond accordingly. Let me move over the mission field inside the industry. We have had a chance, the head of Universal Pictures, NBC, who ran global entertainment, home entertainment. After our first meeting when we launched Cloudburst Entertainment to align with them as a partner for home entertainment, he was so moved by our bringing healthy content to the world and the positioning of low overhead, good stewardship, and bringing the right message and the right content, the way we were doing it, that he said, I want to do a 4-year contract with you. Well, then we presented a first film and the powers to be told them, no, we can't do that faith film. It's too much. It's right during the political season. So in that, even though I had that meeting, even though he wanted to represent, he was really distraught. But that led to me to have a conversation with him about his faith, and I led him to the Lord. And so that guy now will go back and have a chance to influence his organization after 40 years at the top. And that's the kind of things we hope to see continue to happen in this industry. Let me move on to the other mission field. I mentioned the industry. It's also, with the message of the films. I mentioned if you do a biblical review message, sometimes, it's on the nose faith. The Passion of the Christ, God's Not Dead, Case for Christ, those films are on the nose. But sometimes they don't, if they're not done with excellence, they don't get the message out, or sometimes it's singing to the choir. So how do we reach the outliers? Our goal is to really bring films that we can teach our people to select films through an analytic process that are going to be profitable first for the investors. So therefore, then we pick films that are going to be profitable. And then secondly, that are going to be transformational. And in those films, we teach our people that you can reach these folks in every way you're communicating, through your creative, through the way you're setting up your business, setting up your relationships, setting up your marketing. And that's really what's been helpful to us, having more people in the industry on set, as well as in the day-to-day business that we can witness to people by being light and salt. Just the last thing here, I think we're okay on time, is just that, our positioning, our competitive positioning, why producers and writers, A-list producers and writers started coming to Cloudburst very quickly, is because one, we treat them well, we love them well, and we do what we say. And they're tired of being lied to and cheated to and not sure they're going to get a return on the investment that they were told. So again, we've been a chance to bring A-listers like Nick Vallelonga Jr., who did the epic film and world-leading film Green Book. We have his next 3 films that we're taking to market. Sean Reddick, who loves the Lord, he got 10 Academy nominations, last 2 films. We're taking his next 3 films out to the world. And I'm in a collaboration with Leon. And, we hope to be together, working together, that we can not only advocate, how to do business in the industry, but bring content together where, we couldn't do something apart, but we can do it together better. So that's why Leon and I are aligned up. And what he's doing is extraordinary. So with that, I would just say that be encouraged. There is people in the front lines that are bringing the kind of content that you deserve, your families deserve, but also that we can reach people that don't know Christ personally. And so that's what we hope to continue to do. So thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Steve. And one of the takeaways, and we'll talk more about this a little bit during Q&A, is the idea of excellence in content. And I think that has a lot to do with viewership and how people will receive the message. So thanks, Steve. Well, Leon, Schoeman, if you'll take the next 12 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A with everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's good to hang with you this morning, or wherever you're from. It might be afternoon. So let me dive right in, and I want to take a few highlights or high-level views and kind of help you understand the marketplace a little bit as pastors, as organizational heads, as NGO heads. It's helpful to understand a bit of the landscape. So, and I'll be sharing my screen here so you don't have to look at my ugly mug all for the next 11 minutes. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to ask you to make sure that that is full screen available to you. Right, let me do that. And let me just do this, then we all should be good to go. Can you see my screen fine? Okay. So, effective media ministry in a censored world. This is a topic we need 10 days to unpack and for you to understand the complex landscape that we're entering. But for me, personally, this is very exciting. I love the fact that we are drawing a line. It's only when we draw a line that we can choose on what side of this line we are, right? So for me, this is actually a very exciting time. And I love simple quotes like, you know, when John F. Kennedy, I just want to get these things all messing around on my screen now. Let me just get there. Sorry guys, I'm going to actually just exit here so I can minimize some things that's just populating on my screen. Let's get back in. I love what John F. Kennedy says when he says, you know, written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, and we all know this quote, and the other represents opportunity. And also, Michelle Dean, crisis forces commonality of purpose on one another. And that speaks to exactly what we'll need in the next season. And Phil McGraw also says, don't wait until you're in a crisis to come up with a crisis plan. And so I think we need to just completely renew our minds on what this crisis, what this social persecution, what this censorship is that's coming into the market. And we need to absolutely look at it as an opportunity. And I think that's a bit of a godly character that we all need to exercise. That's exactly what God said, that he'll make all things turn for good. And so we need to do that very same thing. And it gives us an amazing opportunity to innovate, to reimagine the way that we create and communicate our messaging. And, you know, COVID is one great example that showed us how quickly the church can pivot, how quickly when pressure comes, we can adapt and change. But was that good enough? We can get into that in a minute. But the industry, as we know, the world overnight was changed and lead to mass innovation on many, many fronts. It had great impact and devastation for a lot of industry. We're not discarding that, but it did create massive influx of innovation. So we need to redefine our voice and our position as anointed people and walk in the authority that God has given us. And I'm tired of people thinking we need to take certain territories. When I specifically talk about media, God's given us that territory. We need to build on that land. We need to occupy that space and build on that land. And certainly we are a number of innovation companies, technology companies, media organizations, Steve's company as well, that we have come together 4.5 years ago and started working on a solution. And it's interesting that the Lord had all of these things lined up for us. So you guys will see in the next 6 months to 8 months, unprecedented change come to the faith-based landscape. And so I'm excited to maybe speak into that a little bit later. So what I said was we need to redefine our voice and our position as anointed people. And that for us is a huge focus. Let me just, oh my goodness, my thing is timed out. Here we go. So our external challenges, though, are smaller than our internal challenges. And what I mean with that is the external challenges we face as church, as Christian representatives, as Christian media messaging, is censorship is an outside external challenge. And we don't have a lot of time to get into the stuff today, but ostracism is exactly, one of the main challenges we have. And what happens is when we get censored, and the process of censorship, as you know, is governments, the EU, the international bodies here in the US, government puts pressure on organizations, on media organizations like Silicon Valley companies, social media organizations, to shape the narrative, put more constraints in what they allow to be said. And those constraints often come through the form of an AI technology solution. So these Silicon Valley companies, they build an AI solution that monitors what messaging you put out is actually going to be censored or cut back based on phrases and words. That's the practical process. So censorship often moves to ostracism, and that's how you get canceled. And I would love some more time to unpack that and how to guard against that and work around those messaging. But that effectively is what happened. Those are the external challenges for your message going out. But the other side of the coin is that internal challenges. This is what we're facing. Is actually much more severe. Is worse, because we can work with external challenges to reshape our message. Things like say what you are for and not what you're against. Build narratives, quality narratives. And we've always had challenges. Even when broadcast code of conducts came in, we needed to change our messaging and adapt for new landscapes. But internally, as the church, as media organizations, we've had a lack of innovation for centuries. We have actually lost our position as people that would lead the industry. From if you look at the Renaissance period and those periods where we led culture, we led international culture, we led art, we led media. That was our default position. We've had such a lack of innovation, generally speaking, in the body of Christ, which created a position where we are not respected. Our craft is not respected. And as a result, and I'm taking this on myself, so I'm not criticizing anyone's work. There are absolute heroes in this mission, but at large, we've absolutely lost the respect of the industry. And if we didn't, we would be at the table. We would be the leading voice at the table. And so for us, it should be alarming to all of us that we are not respected, and therefore, because our message or the way that we've brought our message has resulted in, our God not being respected. Other false gods are absolutely respected and even feared. I don't need to mention those religious organizations' names or what those faith groupings are, but we know as a fact our God is not respected, and that should be an absolute thing that keeps us awake at night. But more importantly, get us focused to solving this problem. Another major issue is unity. I don't want to speak about unity. We always hear it, but we are not operating as Jesus said we should. You be one as I am one with the Father, as we are one with the Holy Spirit. And so unity for us is a massive, massive problem, because here's the let me skip on to the next slide, because and I'll come back. The news is that it takes 3 to 5% of a population to shift culture. Only 3 to 5%. But the bad news is it takes 3 to 5% of a population to shift culture. And so when we talk about, the external challenges we're facing, innovation plus unity, we don't need to unite the entire body of Christ. That's just not a practical thing. The church have always been divided, right? So we only need to unite 5% of the church for us to change culture. And I'm alarmed at the fact that 4% of a certain agenda has completely reshaped the value system of our nation, and it should be alarming to us. So if we apply innovation and we apply some sense of unity, and the biggest factor is we've lost our courage. We need courageous individuals, ministry leaders, representatives of the kingdom to stand up and know that we'll be persecuted, know that they might drag us to court, know that we will be persecuted. But this is the assignment of Jesus. He said, you will be persecuted. These things will happen. We need courage. We can't be cowering down under the pressure that are coming. And I am one that believes that innovation with unity and courage is going to bring about cultural reformation. And that's exactly what we need in this hour, is cultural reformation within our society, within the faith-based society. I'm running out of time, and I've got so much to share with you guys. Let me show you the landscape you're contesting with quickly. The marketing context that you need to speak to: 7.8 billion of the global population 4.5 billion more or less uses internet. Adults aged 16 years and older spend roughly 56% of their daily awake time on media and communications activities. 90% of adults in North America watch online videos, 51% vlog, 70% listen to streaming services, 47% listen to radio, and 41% listen to podcasts. Between 80 and 90% of people consume news and entertainment for an average of almost 24 hours during a typical week. Agents or institutions, here's the kicker, that can impress social norms upon an individual include family, religion, peer groups, economic systems, but primarily media. This is the quick snapshot of the digital landscape. This is what happens in 1 internet minute. There's almost 400,000 app downloads. So the fact that you have an app is no longer a thing. The effectiveness of your app, the quality, the messaging is what it's about. There's almost 4.5 million videos viewed every single minute on YouTube. There's almost 200 million emails being sent, 41 million messages being sent every single minute via WhatsApp, 1 million Facebook logins, almost 700,000 hours being watched on Netflix every single minute, and almost 500 million tweets being sent, or 500,000 tweets being sent every single minute. This is your digital landscape. And it's in that space that we need to have a voice, that we need to make sure our messaging is clear and it comes through effectively. And so I am almost out of time, but I want to mention to you that we have been building a media solution platform, which is in a snapshot, it's an Amazon at the scale of Amazon, meets Netflix, meets Spotify, and meets the largest support services structure for churches on a humanitarian perspective. So, and it also combines an entire social media solution. So it's Facebook combined with Netflix, combined with Amazon, and combined with Spotify and WhatsApp all in one. It's brought to you by some of the leading thought leaders in the technology and media world. And for churches, what does it mean to you? Why should you care? Well, this platform will be free to you. We have an entire sub-platform with advanced media communications and technology solution for you. What it does is it's a centralized environment for media, your live broadcast, all your video conferencing, all your text communication, all your church's management tools for closed or open audiences. You can play it out, you can cast it to Facebook or any other platform, but it absolutely revolutionizes our space. And the reason for this is your data is secure, your database is your database, your distribution is your distribution, and it completely ring fences, pushes a hedge of fire around your entire ministry, your communications, and it's free. It was an assignment by God, or of God, that he gave us to develop this, and this will be ready in the next 6 months. And the heart behind it is purely, and I'm wrapping up with this, is it serves and facilitates the gifts of the anointed men and women of God and organizations and movements to create pathways for you, unlike anything before. So if you want more information on that, I know Pastor Joe's going to speak more into that in future, but you can just email us at hello@oriinternational.com. We can send you more information on that, or let you know when those launch dates are, when you can start using that. Again, it's all to uplift the church. But these are exciting times, and I'll end with that. These are very exciting times. We need to catch a wake up as a church, take our rightful position, and represent God well. I think the future looks so bright for us. It's really exciting, and we win this race. I think that's the best message. We win. So I think my time is up. I can carry on for another half an hour.
Oh, this will take a whole full day. This is some incredible things that we do need to address, especially moving into new wineskins for new wine and the way that God's using the church. Now, each of you, I think, in summary, have talked about heart posture and changing mindsets, and also recognizing we're not to fight the culture, but we're to impact the culture. So I've always believed that those who tell the story define the narrative and create the history. So in that context, we only have about 3 minutes left. So if you can just briefly, each of you, in summary, answer this question: how do we make a splash in this big ocean of distractions, or even those things that are vying for the attention of our audience, and then how do we extend that audience, not just to preach to the choir, so to speak. So you have about 30 seconds each or so, 40 seconds to kind of give us a quick thought that you have to share with us on that. Start with Joe, and then we'll go to Steve and then Leon.
Okay, well, for me, become a Trojan horse and go into the marketplace and become the person that Jesus asks you to become to each individual. You will gain their favor often. And when they least expect it, the Holy Spirit will descend through your position and impact them. I think that's what I would suggest at this point.
Thanks, Joe. Steve?
Be clear with your vision and the call that God called on your life. Stay the course with it. Don't listen to the naysayers. Listen to God's voice over all voices. Be empowered by His Spirit so you can stay courageous. And also, I would say build bridges of collaboration for like-minded people. You can do, what can I do together that I couldn't do apart? You know, with a like-minded person, to everybody's vision gets realized and God gets honored and glorified.
That's great. And Leon, you had mentioned unity, and I know many people think unity means uniformity, but really is unity in our diversity, coming together and part of something bigger than ourselves, a common vision. So Leon, in the last minute that we have left, kind of give us your closing thoughts on how we make a splash.
Well, I think we need to stop looking at the mainstream market and doing what they're doing. We have a very unique message. We have the best message. We have the good news, and the good news sits in our hands, and we need to change our perspective and where we keep our eyes. We have to remain accountable to the Lord. So each one of us have to look at Him as our CEO. We stand before Him wanting to create a fragrance of representation for Him. Stop following. That's Joe. And my last thought would just be that, you know, we figure out what you need to do and then bring the partners in technology. Don't look what technology is available. Build, take that unique thing. God will bring the resources. He'll bring the talent, the skill, and the ability. And so often we just follow and we don't lead.
That's great. Great panel. Thank you so much. Let's go out and be what 2 Corinthians 2:14 says. Let's be a dispenser of the fragrance of heaven in a stinky world.